Well, the Canadian government has launched the first federal green bonds meant to provide a boost to environmentally friendly projects, including renewable energy and measures to adapt to climate change. The issue raised $5 billion from investors who will get 2.25% on their investments each year for the next 7.5 years. Steven Guilbeault is Canada's Minister of the Environment. He joins me now. Minister Guilbeault, good to see you again. Thanks for being with me tonight.
Peter. My pleasure.
Look, Canadian provinces and municipalities, pension plans, banks are already in the green bond market. Why has the federal government decided to get into the green bond business?
For a couple of different reasons, but certainly we know that the transition to a greener economy and a greener society can't be done just with governments. Billions and billions of dollars will be required. We need the private sector. We need the investment community. And green bond is the issuance of green bonds is a way of inviting them to participate with us in the transition to a greener economy in Canada.
What kinds of projects will receive funding from the bond issue?
Good question. Electrification of our transportation. Transportation accounts for 25% of our greenhouse gas pollutions in Canada. We have a number of projects that are being deployed across Canada. So part of that money could go to finance what we're doing on electrification. Energy efficiency. Hugely popular in Canada. There's a green home retrofit program that the Ministry of Natural Resources has started to deploy. Hugely successful project. So the money raised from the green bonds could serve to that. And also, perhaps one last example: our 2 billion tree project, planting 2 billion tree between now and 2030, which is also something that could be funded with the money we raised from green bonds.
What does it say to you? I mean, looking at the speedy take-up on the first issue of federal green bonds, gone pretty quickly. How quickly will you offer another issue?
Well, I mean, clearly the fact that Canada, AAA rated country, would come into this market is a very positive signal to financial markets and to investors. The issuance was more than 2 times oversubscribed. Clearly, there's a lot of interest on the part of investors for this type of financial product. And that's something I've heard, Peter, more and more from investors. We want to be part of this. We want to help you fight climate change. We want to help Canada transition to a greener economy. We want to invest a lot of our dollars. And frankly, they have the investment community around the world has way more money than governments do. So let's bring them on board. And clearly, they're ready.
I want to get a sense of how the bond issue factors into the overall spending plan, financing plan. I mean, your emissions reduction plan, which I understand is coming, I think, next week,
Yes.
will outline your government's, how your government will cut greenhouse gas emissions by as much as 45% by 2030. So what role will the green bonds play in reaching those targets? How significant of a factor will they be?
It's a tool. I mean, there's no silver bullet when it comes to cutting greenhouse gas and achieving ambitious goals like the one Canada has. It's a number of things. I mean, we're putting in place new regulations. For example, we've made a commitment to have 50% of vehicles, light-duty vehicles sold in Canada, be zero-emission vehicle by 2030 and 100% by 2035. We've put in place a price on pollution, which is, according to the International Monetary Fund, a world model in terms of how countries should go about pricing pollution. We're also making investment. So the plan so far is composed of more than 100 measures that we've started deploying. Green bonds is one of the tools in our toolbox to fight climate change and build a stronger and greener economy for Canada and Canadians.
Yeah, I know you're aware. I'm sure some sectors of the economy there's some pushback here over this bond program from, in particular, the nuclear industry, which notes that while the federal government's investing in modular reactor programs as a clean energy source, the green bond program actually prohibits investments in nuclear energy. So can you explain what to some people appears to be a contradiction here?
Yes, well, for this first issuance, we worked with financial institution like HSBC and TD Securities. They looked at what are the best practices around the world for sovereign bonds, green bonds. Looked at Europe, France. And France is an interesting example. 80% of their electricity is generated through nuclear. They also exclude nuclear energy from their green bonds. So do the European Union. So we basically adopted what are the best practices out there for that first issuance of green bonds.
Right. But I mean, Ontario has shown that using nuclear energy has been helping to remove carbon from the power grid in that province. So, do you consider nuclear energy a key tool in reducing greenhouse gas emissions or not?
That's really not what we're saying with the issuance of green bonds. Again, we looked at what are the best practices. You say Ontario uses electricity, nuclear-generated electricity. I gave you the example of France, which does it, and other European countries where they still didn't include nuclear as part of sovereign green bond issuance. So it was the first time we did that. We looked at the best practices out there, and that's what we decided to go with.
All right, Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault, good to talk to you, and we'll perhaps catch up with you again next week when we see the emissions reduction plan. Great to talk to you tonight. Thanks.
With great pleasure, Peter. Thank you so much.